All right, guys, Ruby's dead, Go is faster, everyone go home, no pun intended. The nice thing about this channel is you never really know what you're gonna get when you watch one of these videos, because one day I'm teaching you Ruby and the next day I'm telling you that Rails is awful and I never personally use it. I'm of course paraphrasing a bit, but today I wanna talk a bit about some of the performance discussions I've seen in the comment section recently, because personally I think that there's a bit of nuance there, and like most senior developers, I just want to say that it ultimately depends, right? If you're trying to build an app where performance is important, of course performance is important. But if you're just trying to build a small software as a service that maybe has like a Linktree clone in it and you're charging people for like analytics or something, chances are performance doesn't matter to you. And I don't think that should be something you're prioritizing just so that you can like link the performance statistics on Reddit or something, whatever people do these days. But okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some benchmarks. We're going to take a look at a project built using one of the tools, and then we're going to take a look at what I've used for some of my projects, and we're going to talk about when to use one or the other. I'm being intentionally vague because I'm going to throw a whole bunch of random stuff in here that I haven't even thrown into the video title because I'm a terrible YouTuber who doesn't farm clicks enough. But okay, I'm going to switch over to the desktop, I think, and hopefully my face isn't too much in the way. Let me just move it down real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some of these performance benchmarks. I'm going to keep an eye on the time because I've already looked this up, and I'm going to try and prove that productivity is also a key factor by trying to create something faster than the video that teaches me how to do it in a different language. So this right here is a programming language benchmarks website. Has a whole bunch of links to a whole bunch of cool tools on the side, including like TypeScript, JavaScript, Go, and Ruby. So if we look at a performance comparison for Go and Ruby, we can see that Go is going to beat Ruby in pretty much every category. These look like they're recent as of Thursday, September 8th. They're done using 2 cores on a 2.8 gigahertz CPU, which sounds like a absolute potato. In the case of some of these tests, you're going to see that Ruby did not finish. It looks like maybe the threshold is like 10 seconds and it's just not finishing in time. And throughout all of these, it's pretty consistently going to lose, I'd imagine. In fact, I haven't seen it win one yet, which is pretty funny. But yeah, so does this mean that Ruby is dead and we should all switch over to Go? Well, of course not, because there's more to a programming language or a framework than just the numbers that it runs at. Let's compare Go to C#. In this case, similar timestamp, similar CPUs run on, and here we can see that C# and .NET do win a couple of rounds, but overall, even in terms of the HTTP server, which I didn't cover in the Rails section, or the Ruby section, because it didn't even have a HTTP server. But I just want to say for the record, I think it's like 2 times slower than Go if you're making a Rails server. And like overall, Ruby seems to be about 3 times slower than Go. But okay, in this case, the HTTP server for a Go application is 170 milliseconds, and for .NET, it's about 675. So clearly, Go is the superior language. We should only use Go for everything, right? Well, not exactly. Let's compare Go to the current love child of the internet, that is Rust. And let's go find the HTTP server here because, yeah, Rust is winning in like all of these categories. Keep clicking on the link thinking it'll take me there. But if we look at the HTTP server for Rust, somewhere on this list, let me just search for it, HTTP-server. Someone just subscribed to the channel and scared me. If we look at the comparison here, we can see that Rust has one instance where it is at 130 milliseconds. I'm at 4 minutes, and I'm going to have to edit out a minute or two, so I'm still good. But yeah, so why is Go faster than Rails? Why is Rust faster than Go? Well, I'd make the case that Rust is faster than Go because Rust describes itself as a memory-safe language, and anytime anyone mentions the word memory, you already know that the performance is going to be crazy. In terms of Go versus Ruby, I feel like Fireship sums it up best in the first 2 seconds of 2 different videos, so we're going to watch each. Let's start with the Ruby one.
Ruby, a dynamic interpreted scripting language.
A dynamic interpreted scripting language. And Go.
Go, a statically typed compiled language.
Statically typed and compiled. We're comparing a interpreted and a compiled language. Now, that alone should tell you everything in terms of like how far down the rabbit hole I've gone here with this comparison, but I just want to make the case that compiled languages are faster than interpreted languages, and yet Python owns a massive share of the market that C doesn't. So why is that? Well, C is naturally going to be the absolute behemoth of performance, but there's just stuff that's better to be done in one tool than the other. Let me do a quick comparison here. If we look at this list, you'll see that we're not really seeing WordPress on here, but I can do a comparison with PHP. Maybe I want to compare PHP and Go, and we can see that Go is going to win in all of these categories, of course. Does that mean that Go is the better choice for the job? No, because there's people that make WordPress websites. And at this point, I do need to start actually making the Rails app for the sake of the video. So I'll just start on that. But WordPress is like 40% of the online market share in terms of like websites made. It's like a pretty popular option for freelance projects because you have templates and all of that other stuff. And the reason why it's still used is because it's so fast at setting up a project. You could compare it to like Go or C# or Rust or even Ruby, and there's a chance that it's going to be slower than all of those. In the case of PHP and Ruby, we can take a look, and it looks like Ruby's actually picking up some wins here over PHP. That doesn't mean that Rails is the best tool for the job. In the case of like Shopify, Rails was the best tool for the job, and because Shopify is made in Rails. But if you're trying to make your own online store, people make the argument that you should make it from scratch. Why would you do that if you could just spin one up in Shopify in 5 minutes instead of having to spend hours making it? Same thing with Thinkific for online courses. This is another one of those things where it's just easier to spin up a Thinkific instance than it is to create a course platform from scratch. That's why I did it. But okay, let's try to create a new Rails app from scratch, and then we'll take a look while we're doing this at how long a Go tutorial would be for this, just to make the case that productivity is good. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a productivity application, just like I had here. And then I'll just go ahead and hit enter. And while I'm doing that, I guess I'll just hit yes on all of these. There we go. While I'm doing that, I'm going to come over here and actually, you know what? Let's just rm-rf productivity. And then let's go ahead and do another Rails new for productivity. There we go. We'll come into YouTube. And then while this is running, we'll go ahead and we'll search for something like a Go blog CRUD app or something. And then I'll cd into productivity. And it looks like this is a 30-minute tutorial, 40-minute, there's a 10-minute one. Yeah, there we go, a 10-minute tutorial. So let's make this to-do list. And I'm at 9 minutes for this video right now. So I'm just gonna say Rails G scaffold to-do. We'll give each to-do a title, a body of type text, and a completed of type Boolean. So then we could, of course, go and watch this Go tutorial, follow along with it. And we could do something like, I don't know, Rails DB :migrate, and then a Rails S. Then we can come over here, go to localhost port 3000, and then we can go to /todos. Oops, not todos 1. We can just go to, oops, there we go. And now we're 9 minutes and 40 seconds into this video, which I have my recording right here. I'm probably going to edit some of that out, so the timestamp might not match entirely, but we'll just say, I don't know, hello world, and then we'll create this. We'll come in here, we'll edit this to-do, set it to completed, and we're done in the span of the time it took to make this tutorial. Again, productivity is interesting because it's not usually measured from the perspective of the consumer of the tool. It's measured from the perspective of the developer. And if you have a tool like Rails or you have a tool like WordPress where a lot of stuff comes out of the box, it allows you to get a lot more done in a shorter amount of time. In that case, you could make the case that Rails is a more performant language, or it's a faster language because the development speed is faster. And that's where I see this argument in the comments all the time, where people try to make this like false equivalence between performance being the like end all be all of an application and productivity being the end all be all of an application. And I would personally just like to go on the record, because I get tagged in this, where people are like, hey, can you tell this person what I want you to tell them? I don't really like to do that because I don't have a horse in the race. Like Rails could stop existing tomorrow and I would still sleep just fine. And Go could, you know, stop existing tomorrow and I would sleep just fine. But I just want to make the case that, like, depending on whatever your use case is, one of these could be more valuable than the other. If I work at a company and we need to crank out a highly performant application that needs to be spread across multiple servers, where each API needs to have like a, I don't know, a WebSocket, real-time chat room application, progress bar thing, I'm going to be using Go, because Go is good at being parallelized and is good at WebSockets. If I'm working at a company where they're like, hey, Dean, we need you to build this like back-end web portal for all the developers to go run tests from, I'm probably going to go use Rails, because that's like a like an afternoon job maybe. I've done something similar in .NET. It turned into like a 2 or a 3 day job. And in Rails, I know that I could confidently build that out in like 2 hours. And that's not really a difference in the framework so much as my skill sets probably, but I'd still say that Rails is going to pull ahead there in terms of getting it done quickly, because of some of the stuff you have to do manually in .NET. That said, like long term, maybe it doesn't matter, but if we're just trying to spin something up real quick and we don't really care about performance, then yeah, I'm probably going to go with Rails in that case. It all comes down to whatever you're trying to accomplish. I don't think that you're going to accomplish much in life by trying to win the equivalent of an Xbox versus a PlayStation console war with your programming languages or your frameworks. Ruby is slow, Go is fast, but making stuff in Ruby is fast and making stuff in Go can be slow. That's the video. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.